2020, the hits just keep on coming. Um, I could go into a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, all of the usual political shit, and all of the stuff that's going on with people and the clergy and all of this stuff. And I mean, I really am blown away by the level of fuckery that goes on with among so-called Christians. You know, when you ascribe capitalism to Jesus and you dismiss uh, sexual sins that would get you put out of a Christian college or get you ejected from leadership, and you defend all of this stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing what levels of fuckery that people call themselves. Listen, I'm going to tell y'all something. We're witnessing something truly extraordinary. We are watching. Like I wrote a book called Deconstructing Religion. You can get it on Amazon, and actually the book is although it's great, I love it because I wrote it. It's your books are like your children. You don't have a favorite, and no matter how they change or what their level of relevance is, you always love them. But I'm going to write a sequel to this book, and I was going to call it Deconstructing Religion Part Two, with the subtitle "Burn That Shit to the Ground." But I don't even have to do that now. I'm trying to figure out how can I frame this sequel because, man, Christianity, without any help, is burning itself to the ground. And I'm going to tell you something. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There are people and people whom I love and respect very greatly. They don't like when I say this. And I'm not saying this to poke the bear or to make anybody mad. That's not the purpose of it. But I'm of the mindset where I'm just really done with theology because it is the only branch of study, the only major branch of study that has not advanced at all. Now, you could talk about Baxter Kruger, and you could talk about Bruxy Cavey, and you could talk about Rob Bell, and you could talk about Shelby Spong, and you could talk about Brian Zahn, and all of these wonderful theologians, right? And you could say, yeah, well, what about these guys? What about these guys? And some of the church fathers, what about these guys? And you could really get into this. But at the end of the day, they've only moved pockets. Let me explain something here. When Henry Ford started manufacturing cars and he said that he was going to sell Model Ts for $700. Now, that's like about 9 grand in today's money. But $700 he was going to sell a brand new automobile for this price. That completely moved the needle with the automotive industry. And speaking of Ford, that when Ford developed the tri-motor aircraft, that moved the needle in aviation. And then Boeing with the B-29 bomber, it moved the needle. When Einstein and Niels Bohr began to discuss physics versus quantum physics, it moved the needle in science. When Madame Curie discovered radium, it moved the science of physics. It was not just an incremental change. It was a big change. But there's nothing in theology that does that. And I've said this, that if you take a surgeon from the year 300 AD and drop him in 2020, or her, but it's likely him because of the chauvinistic nature of that time of humanity. But if you drop her into 2020 and don't give him any tech, no surgical instruments, no YouTube, no videos, no smartphones, no computer, nothing, just books. If you give them the books, they'll open up the book and they'll say, holy fuck. I mean, it has really, wow. If you take someone who does structural engineering from the year 300 AD and drop them into 2020, they're going to be like, I mean, don't give them any tech, no computers, no smartphones, nothing. Don't show them anything but the books. They'll look at the books for today and they'll say, holy fuck, things have changed. Science, medicine, physics, philosophy, music, anything, you name it, that if you drop someone from 300 AD into today, they would literally, their head would explode from what they're seeing. But if you took a theologian from 300 AD and dropped him in 2020 and gave him nothing but the books, they'd be right at home. Now, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I only brought this up because I'm done with theology. Basically, anything that doesn't adapt, that doesn't flow, pretty much deserves to end. Now, when it comes to people, sometimes people don't adapt very well, but you can always teach people, but you can't teach systems. Either the system adapts or it doesn't. And theology hasn't. So in my estimation, it deserves to die. Your mileage may vary. Some people are going to say they're going to hear this or see this and they're going to get pissed and they're going to, oh my God, here he goes again. But no, I'm serious. Listen, I would get on national TV and say this because theology honestly is bullshit. And I have a ton of respect for the people who have dedicated their lives to scholarly research, to studying these things. But at the end of the day, the question is, what does it help? What does it contribute to society? I mean, it's like, for crying out loud, man, theology alone couldn't even stop slavery. Come on. But anyway, today I want to talk about credit. I want to talk about credit because, first of all, I believe that for the children of the universe, which that's everyone, I believe that the final frontier, the one thing that hasn't been worked out in such a way that that this is accessible to everyone, is finance. You can get education, you can go online, you can Google things, you can learn things. There are ways of educating yourself, and then there are ways of figuring out business and all of that stuff. But the reality is that everything else has been democratized, except finances. There's still an elitist component or a segregated component to finance, and I believe that when we get past that when people don't have to worry about money, when money becomes a minor worry instead of a major worry. And I listen, for all of the people out here who are struggling, trying to pay their rent and all of that, I really believe that there needs to be something done to make sure that we protect the housing of people. And that's another thing. But this credit thing really weighs heavy on me because there's a Jewish proverb that says that you cannot build wealth without debt. And I believe that is true. If you look at, when you look at real estate, it's always like other people's money. You're trying to figure out how to leverage the power of other people's money in order to gain control of property for yourself. And in doing this, if you're buying smart, you can either buy low and sell high, or you can buy and lease, and all of these things. When you put them together in a portfolio, it helps you to increase your wealth. Okay, and so in order to take on debt, you have to have credit. And this goes back to something I love, the whole original hip hop culture, but it was one of these sayings is word is bond. Word is bond. In other words, what I say, I mean, and what I mean, I say. That if I say it, this is what I'm going to do. And word is bond meant it meant something. Because in all honesty, the only thing that you really have besides the breath in your body is your word. And everything kind of hinges on that. Whether or not you get a job, whether or not you have a relationship, whether or not you're able to lead in a spiritual capacity, your word is your bond. And if your word is worthless, then you have no credit. I tell my sons all the time, make sure that you are on top of what you say because your words mean something. And one of the problems that I see in society is this concept of do as I say, not as I do. And when you approach that, you are essentially saying that your word is not your bond. When you tell somebody, do as I say, not as I do, you're essentially nullifying your own personal credit. Now, for those of you that don't understand, is that when you pretty much start off as an adult and you go and apply for some credit, either a personal loan or a credit card, and you're on this mission. And listen, let me say this something about credit is that be deliberate about your credit. Watch your credit. Watch your credit scores. Watch how you borrow. Watch how you use credit because all of this matters. But when you first start off, and again, your mileage may vary, but everybody starts off with like around a 600 credit score. You know, because a credit score goes from 0 to 850, 850 being a perfect score. 600 is like where everybody starts off right out of the gate. You know, you can get maybe a secured MasterCard, or you may be able to get a department store credit card, something like that, or a gas credit card, something like that. You know, and it depends. It depends. Now, you might be starting off if you're coming right out of college and you get a job making $100,000 a year. Cheers, mate. You know, you've done pretty good. So your credit may be a little bit higher. You know, your mileage may vary. So when you start off with credit, you start off with this 600 score. And then depending on how you use your credit, in other words, you don't use it to try to augment your bill paying. You keep your utilization under 30%. And really, if you want to see your credit grow, keep it like around 3 to 5%. Now, that's hard. That requires some discipline. But if you do that for a couple of years, you raise your scores up, and you'll have really good credit. Now, I'm not saying I'm a credit expert because I've had really great credit and I've had really awful credit, and now I'm doing pretty medium. You know, but the point that I'm getting at is you want to make good use of the credit that you have. Now, that's how it works with money, because see, once you get your credit scores up, for example, you want to buy a home. If you want to buy a home and you're not buying under VA or FHA, if you're buying using a conventional loan, you probably need a credit score of around 700 at least. Okay, if you're a VA or FHA, you might be able to do it with a 650. You know, it depends. But how you pay your bills, make sure you pay your bills on time. That's the important thing too. Always pay on time. If you pay on time, you get more credit. You know, you keep your utilization low, and basically, pay on time. Your credit will grow. Another thing what you don't want to do, you don't want to have too many of what they call hard inquiries. Hard inquiries are where you're applying for credit. You're applying for specific things. And when sometimes you'll go out there and, like, if you go to Credit Karma or something like that, it'll tell you a recommended credit card for you, and it'll tell you that it only does what they call a soft pull. If it's a soft pull, it only it doesn't pull your credit in such a way that it causes a hard inquiry. Because if you have too many inquiries, that dings your credit too, brings your score down. Now I'm going somewhere with this, because a lot of you are probably saying that, those of you that have fantastic credit, cheers, mate. That's all well and good. For those who don't, this may be helpful, but I'm going somewhere with this. You please stay with me. So you get soft pulls, and you open up a new account, and you do this over a period of a year. You do it strategically. You build your credit score way up. Keep paying on time. Now, if you don't pay on time, that will ding your credit. Also, if you have too many inquiries, that will ding your credit. Or if you are overextended, that means, like, if you're using 70 to 80% of your available credit, that will bring your credit score down too. And I'm telling y'all, promise you, I am going somewhere. Because all of this, I'm talking about natural money, and this is important. We need to talk about natural money. My man Kyle Butler, before he stopped doing, or he took a pause from his three chord lives, he was starting to talk about money. He was talking about credit, talking about budget, talking about real estate. He was talking about loans and all of these things. And we need to talk about this stuff, because money is the final frontier. It's like, if we could get the money thing together, where people don't have to worry about money anymore, I'm going to tell you something. It would reshape the world. It would reshape everything. And so we need to get to that. But here's what I'm getting to, is that when I meet someone for the first time, they basically start off with a 600 credit score with me. Yeah. You start off with average credit. Now, if you go down the line, and I'm able to trust you, or I see that you're someone that has my best interests at heart, that you're someone that's looking after me, someone that's not stabbing me in the back or anything like that, your credit goes up. And when the credit goes up, that means I can trust you more. I have a higher degree of confidence in you. And what this does is it helps me to maintain some proper boundaries with people. Because I know people, and I know people that I've known for many, many years, and they've stabbed me in the back. you know, I've had people that I've known that have just absolutely did their level best to fuck me. And I'm not talking about sexually. So these people that have done this, their credit is never going to be really good with me, because I forgive, but like a credit report, I don't forget. Now, here's the other thing too, is that there's this concept of the 7-year jubilee, if you will, that if you have some debt that you failed to pay, and 7 years down the road, the credit bureau will stop reporting on that debt. That's good news. I mean, you want to pay your bills, but it's like, if you wind up not paying for whatever reason, there's that's part of the mechanism, the consumer protection part of it, if you will. So there are people in my life. I remember, I'm gonna use a one particular friend, and I'm gonna call him out by name. The brother's name is Paul Freeman, and Paul and I met in new hire training when we were going through new hire training at SAP America in 1996, and Paul and I met, and we hit it off. I mean, we were like, I have a few people in my life Marshall Stooks is another one. Kyle Butler is another one. That when I met these guys, that there was a bond, and I have another friend, Dan Hunter. The same thing. That when we met, we connected. My brother-in-law, Tony Smith, is another one. That when we met, we connected. My late father-in-law. I hate in-law, but Jerry Wilbright, same thing. When I met these guys, it was like, yeah, we're just like in there like swimwear, tighter than pantyhose, two sizes small, right? And so these guys, like when I met Paul, I think it was the third day we were in training, and we were all having lunch because SAP was really kind of sweet back in those days. They had catered lunches during new hire training. And so a lot of our classmates were asking Paul and I, man, how long have you guys known each other? And we said, 2 days. And that's how it is. There are some people that you meet and it just clicks. And Paul has never let me down. Marshall has never let me down. Kyle has never let me down. Tony has never let me down. Jerry never let me down. These are people that never, ever, ever let me down. Never. Never. And then I have like really old friends, like my second oldest friend, Leon Mims. Leon never let me down. Never let me down. Never. So these guys have perfect credit with me. They're 850s. I would trust them with my life. There are some people though that I wouldn't trust them any further than I could throw a building. You thought I was going to say I couldn't trust them any further than I could throw them, but I'm a pretty strong guy. And I could throw I could throw a motherfucker. So, but I can't throw a building. So that's about how far I trust some folks. And when you have that level of trust where you could trust someone, it's like basically your most intimate secrets, your personal information, your wife and children. I mean, basically these are people that I could, I could trust them with anything, and I know that I'm good. But there are some people. Now, I'm not going to mention anybody by name, but there are some people. I mean, that literally they've lied on me, they've cheated me, they've stolen from me. I listen. And I just I can't with them. And let me tell you this. I'm going to say this because I'm not going to get into politics in a very heavy way. But basically, right now, pretty much anybody who is a Trump supporter, their credit asymptotically goes to zero with me. And if you want to know what an asymptote is, go look it up. Google it. I'm not going to explain that. That's an extended conversation. But I can't trust anybody who supports something that doesn't have my best interests at heart. And we can agree to disagree on a lot of things. I have friends that are Republican. I have friends that are Democrat. I have friends that are Libertarian. But when it comes to Trump supporters, if you're a Trump supporter, you're not my friend. Sorry. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm really going to swat that hornet's nest, and I really don't care. Because at the end of the day, what he represents to this country and to minorities, to women, dog, if you're there, I'm not. So your credit is zero with me. You couldn't, I was about to say something, but let me say this. I was about to say, if you were on fire, I wouldn't pee on you to put it out. But actually, empathy and compassion tells me that I wouldn't let you burn. because that I'm not that low. But um, as far as the whole thing about whether or not someone that's a Trump supporter, whether or not they could be my friend or not, no, no. So anyway, let me get that. I've gotten that out of the way, get that out of my system. This credit thing is really, really important because, again, it has an impact on your finances, your personal finances. And then business is another thing because in order for you to grow your business, you are going to have to figure out how to take on debt. You're either going to have to go to banks and borrow money, or you're going to have to be big enough where you can create debt instruments like bonds and sell those in order to help float your business. And if your credit is bad, if you have a habit of not paying your bills, and let me say this, right? Personal credit is one thing, and even in relationships, because I understand people go through shit. There are times when you may experience something that causes your credit to drop off. You may have a medical bill. You may have a death in the family. You may things happen. Shit happens, and I get it because the thing is that I've learned that if you go to your creditors when you are really going through something, if you have a death in the family, if you lost your job, if the pandemic or whatever, that your creditors are not completely heartless, where they will be heartless when you start trying to blow them off when they're trying to collect their money. Then at that point, your credit's going to go down because they've tried to reach you, and they get to the point where they write your debt off. At that point, they've zeroed it out. Your credit with them as an institution has gone to zero. You have been written off. Now, at that point, your debt gets sold to a debt collector. And here's the thing about debt collectors is that they buy your debt for pennies on the dollar, and then they turn around and try to get you for all of the money that you borrowed or all the money that you owe, because debt is an instrument. It is an instrument by which people make money. It's just like car loans. You know, one of the big things with the housing bubble in 2008, 2009, it was because all of these subprime loans had been given out, and basically they have been sold on the market as debt instruments, and people buy them because they think, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money on this, but they didn't, and there you go. Likewise, when you don't pay a bill, it gets written off. That means the company is able to deduct it from their taxes, but it's sold on the open market to someone who can come back and claim the entirety of the debt if they can. Now, the reason why I brought that up is because sometimes when you incur a bad credit situation with an individual, that there may be somebody out there that's willing to pull up the slack, because see, people who buy debt are shady. You know, when they buy, people who buy bad debt are shady, and so people who will basically, you know, kind of invite you into their circle once you've incurred a bad debt with the rest of, you know, people in your circle, you better watch out for them, because that motherfucker is going to be shady. It's the truth. That's the truth. So this credit is very, very important. It determines, credit determines how much you're able to borrow. It determines where you're able to live. It determines what you're able to drive. It even can determine where you work or what kind of work you can do. Because if you want to work in a bank and you have bad credit, you're not going to get the job in that bank. I don't care how much experience you have or how good you are at it, you just won't get the job. When you talk about security clearances, if you have bad credit, you cannot get a top secret security clearance. And if you have a top secret security clearance and your credit gets bad, they can revoke your clearance, which means that you can't do your job and you get axed. So credit is important. Word is bond. I mean, those three words are so incredibly important because you only have as much credit can as you can sustain. See, some people go out and they overextend themselves. These are people that want to have everybody as a friend. And listen, I'm going to tell you, social media is something else because when I hit the 5,000 limit on Facebook, I was like, wow. I said that's pretty amazing. But what happened was is that you get different groups of people, and so I break down people into three basic groups. You know that you have cheerleaders, you have voyeurs or spectators, and parasites, right? And so the cheerleaders those are your real friends. Those are the ones that are going to cheer you on. They're going when you're whether you're up in the game or whether you're down in the game. They're like sis boom ba rah rah rah. They are cheering you on. Hey, we want to score. They are cheering you on. Those are your real friends. But then you have voyeurs or spectators. These are people who have no vested interest in the game, but they're watching. And some people are watching hoping you might succeed. But there are some people who are watching you hoping you'll fail. And I understand right now, this minute, that I have some quote unquote friends on Facebook that the only reason they are continuing to befriend me on Facebook is because they are hoping at some level that I crash and burn. Especially once I broke away from the traditional religious paradigm, they were like, man, I hope that you crash and burn. And then the last group are parasites. Parasites, you do not want a parasite in your life. There is no good use for a parasite. Parasites are the people that will suck you dry. They are the ones that, like, let's use social media for an example, that if you have a lot of connections, these people want to be connected to you only for your connections. They don't really care about you. They don't care about what you do. They don't even care whether you succeed or fail. All they know is that by them being connected to you, they are able to get something. They don't return anything. They don't give any energy. They're vampires. They're parasites. All they're doing is they're sucking the life out of your machine. And I'm going to tell you something, that once you find a parasite in your life, get rid of it. It's just like if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you got a tapeworm. Well, if you got a tapeworm, you need to get rid of that because that tapeworm is stealing nutrients from you. It's stealing life out of you, and it's not giving you anything back. All it is giving you cramps. You follow what I'm saying? And that's what parasites do. They give you mental, spiritual, and emotional cramps. They give you spiritual, emotional, and physical diarrhea. They give you mental, physical, and emotional heart trouble. Get rid of the parasites. And really, the only way that you're going to get rid of a parasite is to be able to identify a parasite. And how do you identify a parasite? Credit. Credit. That when people show up in your life, that you assign them a certain amount of credit. Now, I'm going to tell you, that sounds very antiseptic. That sounds very rigid and cold. And I'm going to tell you something. I love people. I'm a people person. Anybody that knows me, man, I am Mr. Gregarious. I am a people person. But I've learned that everybody who's among me ain't with me. And so when I find out that you're just lurking in the shadows to see what you could get or to see if you can help me fall or watch me fall, then fuck that, man. You got to go. That's just the way a TI is, y'all. And you cannot listen when some. Let me back up for a second because my wife quotes this one quote by Dr. Maya Angelou often. She says that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone shows themselves to be faithful, that they're helpful, that they are life giving. That when you find these people, understand that that's your tribe. Vibe with them. But when they show you that they are going to lie from you, cheat on you, steal from you, backstab you, talk bad about you, and otherwise sit around and spectate whether or not you're going to fail, or they're parasites where they're sucking the life out of you, you need to get that out of your life. That's bad energy. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to talk about vibration when I do my next talk on Tuesday on quantum spirituality. But I'm gonna tell you, when you find, it's like the Beach Boys song, good vibrations. That song is almost like spiritual. Because when someone's giving you good vibrations, they're giving you energy. They're flowing something from you. They're releasing free electrons that are able to bond with yours and to create new compounds. But when someone is got bad vibrations, they're looking to steal an electron from you, or they're looking to break compounds that you've made with other people. And you gotta learn to identify that. And I'm gonna tell you, credit. So here's the thing. If you get your natural credit score in order, you will see some increases in your finances. You'll see some good changes in your financial energy. And likewise, when you learn to assign proper credit to individuals, then you learn to compartmentalize people, and you can say, okay, and I'm going to tell you that sounds harsh, but I'm going to tell you something. This is the game for free, y'all. It's like referee Mills Lane used to say in the boxing game. He'd say, protect yourself at all times. Let's get it on. You've got to keep your dukes up, because there's somebody out there that's looking to slug you. And let me say this about that, because I was talking with somebody the other day, and matter of fact, I was talking with my sister Sandy. That's who I was talking to, and I remember, like, when I used to box, I used to hate dealing with counterpunchers. And what I mean by that is that every boxer learns how to counterpunch. That when a jab goes out, they learn that they could put a right hand over that. Or that when somebody puts out a right hand, that they're exposed for a left hook. There are things that you learn how to counter. But there are some dirtbags out there that they make their trade in counterpunching. They don't have any offense. All they're doing is they're trying to lay back and wait for you to make a mistake. And I'm going to tell you something. When I used to box, I would try to punish a counterpuncher. Because if you ain't got no offense on your own, I really don't have no respect for you. If you're not willing to carry your own fight game, then fuck you. I'm coming to get you. That was my mentality. Okay? And so when I'm dealing with people, if I find somebody that's a counterpuncher, and what I mean by they're not actually trying to forge a fight on their own. They're not trying to conduct good ring generalship. They're just basically trying to lean back on the ropes and hope that they can catch you. And I'm not talking about the Ali rope-a-dope, because Ali, he came off the ropes and he fought. It was like he did the rope-a-dope just enough to get Foreman sucked in, where he was able to put some offense on him. He wasn't trying to fight the whole fight from a counterpunching perspective. Just had to throw that out there, because Ali was like my idol. So growing up. So anyway, that is pretty much what I have today. Be free to extend credit to people. When you meet people, give them the benefit of the doubt. But once you find out that all they have is doubt, then it's time for you to withdraw your benefits. Real simple. Real simple. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please click like and subscribe and follow these videos. If you're watching on Facebook Live, please, pretty please, share this with others, that especially if it's been a blessing to you. If it hasn't been a blessing to you, then you can say, hey, Derrick, fuck you. I'm not sharing your stuff, and I'm cool with that. But if you like it and it's helped you, share it with somebody else so they can they can get help too. Also, be sure to check out the Heretic Happy Hour podcast, which I might add, we just found out is number 78 worldwide of all religious and spirituality podcasts. Number 78, that we cracked the top 100. So I want to give a shout out to my co-hosts, Katie Valentine, Matthew DiStefano, and Keith Giles. I'm going to tell you something. I am so very blessed to be able to hang out with you guys. I love y'all and I appreciate you. Also, be sure to check out, I've renamed my podcast from Love Forward to Forward. It's just Forward now. And we're going to talk about a whole lot of things, just how to move forward, how to move humanity forward at the speed of thought. And you can check out my website, www.derrickday.com. Click the link marked contact and it will give you a form that you can fill this form out and it'll send me an email. And I got like 5 emails this week and I was able to respond to all of them. If you send me an email, I will respond to it. Good or bad, doesn't matter, because 2 of those were bad. 3 were good, 2 were bad. But hey, you can't win them all, right? And you can also check me out Instagram, Twitter. My handle is Derrick E. Day. That's DerrickEday. And I think that pretty much covers everything. So I want to give a couple of more shout outs to my man Henry Harris, the Brother Henry and You Show, and to Tony Calloway for Life and Favor. You guys, please like these guys, check them out. And Matthew DiStefano has a new podcast out too. Oh, shoot. And I can't think of the name of it. How about that? But anyway, just look up Matthew DiStefano and look up his podcast and subscribe to it and like it and rate it 5 stars. Because if you don't, the Russian bots will come and get you. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. So until the next time, I just want to tell y'all, as I always do, namaste. I see the light in you. Namaste. I see the God in you. Peace.